I'd like to call this meeting of the Holmes Hindley Royal Building Committee to order at 6:05. First thing we'd like to do is, first order of business is approving the minutes from last Thursday's meeting. Do we have a motion to approve? Jameson moves, Jill seconds, all in favor? Unanimous, great. Any public comment for this evening? Anybody here for public comment? Okay. Chair report, going to keep it fairly brief. The most important thing that happened since we last met was that Jill and David Martin and I attended the RTM Rules Committee meeting and the RTM Education Committee meeting on Monday, and each of those committees approved the appropriation resolutions. I guess the Rules Committee approved putting them on the agenda technically for the April 18th RTM meeting. Education Committee also approved them. So the next step in terms of getting our interim appropriation approved is us all getting prepared a presentation for the RTM for their April 18th meeting. That's really the next big milestone. The other milestone, I believe today, architect RFP responses.
They're all behind you on the table.
Holy smokes, look at that. Okay, looks like we got architect RFP.
They were due today.
Responses.
How many did?
How many? Yeah, I guess how many? 9.
I think you said 29 at first.
I don't know.
9.
That's more than we submitted.
Okay. So, I guess, are those are copies that folks can take with them, and we'll discuss. I guess we need to discuss next steps with regard to those RFP answers. I'm sorry. Yeah. Which is another order of business on the agenda. Mike has a limited amount of time this evening, so I was going to turn it over to him to give us an update on where the land surveys stood, construction manager RFQ, and talk briefly about the timing of the traffic study and whether you're ready to make a recommendation as to, and I'd spoken with Randy as well, make a recommendation as to which of the two vendors we would want to have do sign up for the traffic study, even though they're not quite ready to get started on it until we get more info from the architects.
Okay, so I can be here till about 6:40. So the land survey quotes for the 3 locations have been accepted, and they went to the town administrator for.
Right. And they gave a billing code.
Yeah, they gave us a code, and we did the purchase orders for them. 2 traffic proposals were received. We had, some of the proposals weren't even, so we had, take this out, take that out.
Right.
Split it up among the 3 buildings, and they gave them, I sent them to Randy, and I think I sent them to you too, did I?
Yes. Yes.
I sent you and Randy, I didn't send them to you too?
I'll double check.
Okay. And Randy was gonna make a recommendation to you.
He did.
Okay.
He recommended, Randy recommended, I think after conversations with you, that we go with Ty and Bond.
Sure.
That you thought that they were the best that they had done. They had done the Ox Ridge traffic study, and they knew their way around town.
They have a tremendous amount of experience working with, as a consultant and as a vendor, for other people with the town. So they're very familiar with the P&Z and the zoning regulations and wetland regulations, et cetera.
Right. But we won't, for the committee's benefit, we won't have the traffic studies obviously in time, since we just got the first RFP responses. we won't have the traffic studies in time even for the architect's charrettes, and likely won't have the traffic studies in time for the architects once they're selected, but the architect that is selected in part of the selection process will be having the architects be aware that they have to take account of the traffic studies, that they'll be working in effect in parallel with the traffic consultant, and the traffic consultant will then look at the architect's design development plans and kind of along each stage of the way and comment on those, so that the architect's design takes into account the traffic studies and what needs to be done.
Yeah, he will, they said they will do their counts this school year,
Right, okay.
hopefully in May, before school ends, or start having shorter days and stuff like that. They want to do the counts at all the intersections.
Now, will they, and part of that, they'll interact with the principals when they do that as well, right? Okay.
So then, the next item I have is the RFQ for the construction managers. That is up online.
Okay.
And there's been no questions asked yet. The RFP for the architect, there were a substantial amount of questions.
Right.
That, you know, I did speak to the one firm that asked a tremendous amount of questions, and,
Right.
and in the end, he felt all of his questions were answered.
He did, okay.
Yeah.
Now, and we'll get to that in a second, but did Antonozzi, did they submit?
They did submit.
They did submit,
yeah.
okay.
And the next item, I mean, you have it down here a little bit, but there were 9 responses
Mm-hmm.
to the architectural RFP, and they put enough copies there for every member of the
Well, if I may,
committee.
why don't we just, let's stop, before we move on, but why don't we finish with the traffic, I know I just get started on RFPs, but on the traffic study, I don't believe that it technically needs to be approved by the committee. We have the funding approved for it, but, so I think, we can authorize you to retain tie and bond if people would like to, as a matter of order, to vote on that. I don't see any reason why we can't, right?
Might as well.
So, if we can get a motion to approve retaining tie and bond as the traffic study consultant. David moves, can I get a second? Jameson seconds, all in favor? Unanimous. So Mike, I guess we'll need to then do the same thing with the town and get a billing code
Yes,
assigned for that, okay.
get that on Monday.
And then maybe we can follow up with, maybe we can connect you and Dave Carwar, who's managing our timeline, just so we can all see it in one place. So he can get the
Okay.
approximate timelines
Yeah.
for the traffic and the surveys into his, please.
Well, if the committee doesn't mind, I know it's a little bit out of order, but since Mike brought up the architect RFP questions in the selection process, and he's got a little bit of time, if people don't mind, maybe we'll continue that discussion and jump to item 7 and then come back and do 5 and 6.
You might just amend the agenda.
I guess we amend the agenda to do item 7.
I'll move, yeah, you move, I'll second you.
Can I get a motion to amend the agenda so that we discuss item 7 before we discuss items 5 and 6?
Yeah. Oh, because we're in a special meeting.
Can't do that?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Really? On to number 5.
Really?
Okay, so I guess we can't do that as a matter of process.
Sorry.
I apologize to all for suggesting that. Then I guess we turn to Ray for an update on his conversations with the state.
Not much has happened last week. I did talk to Kerwood on the state.
Right.
They gave me the 3
Guys.
criteria.
Darien Town Hall. Sorry.
We did talk about the 3 criteria.
He did talk about
What's
all
the
those.
username though?
I'm sorry, I think,
Sorry, I was just trying to get on the Wi-Fi, I want to read something.
It's Town Public is the one.
Thank
Go ahead.
you, Ray.
Okay, first criteria is cost. Definitely renovated new is gonna cost you more
mhm.
than just doing your option you're looking at now. New cost is probably another the third, to put a brand new school out there.
Right.
Second criteria was you have to have, the building's gotta be at least 20 years old, which you have.
Mm-hmm.
Third criteria of that building has to be at least 75% of the school is more than 30 years old, okay? That criteria we don't meet on any of the schools, because your renovations or your additions you put on with 1996, so that makes all your renovations, all your additions, the new parts of the building, are only 26 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes renovation as due off the table.
Okay. It
For all
does
three?
take,
It does take it off the table.
so we're back to, so we will be doing a alteration.
Alteration and expansion.
Okay.
That's a good thing.
75% of the schools must be more than how many years old?
30.
30.
Oh, we're so close. That keeps our scope clean.
Now, the revised resolutions, do we have a plan for those to go in front of the RTM? Just a question for you all to think about.
You mean, how are we gonna present them to the RTM?
Yes.
Yeah, well, we'll send them to Kate, who'll get them into the agenda.
Right, for the RTM.
For the RTM.
These are to revise the resolutions per the suggestions from the
Mhm.
state.
Mhm. So I
And
think
that's
our
for
next.
this RTM coming up, the April one,
April 18th.
April 18th?
Yes.
Can you get it into the April 18th? Because the Rules Committee didn't.
Rules
Right.
has to put it on the agenda.
Oh, they only did the appropriations?
Yeah.
Rules, right.
You still have a couple of months, so it's.
We
Yeah.
can get it on the May then, we can get it on
Yeah.
the May.
Right,
Thank you.
I just don't want to get lost.
Yep. Okay, let's add that to the timeline for David as well.
So the determination that will be alteration and expansion, that came from your conversation with Kermit at the
The three criteria came from Kermit, he has not seen any documentations on this yet.
Okay,
I have talked to Mike here about square footages and make those analysis, and that's what I came up with.
okay.
Make sense?
And that's good because,
The 1996 additions
right,
are only 26 years old. The older buildings, the older parts of the buildings were less than 50%. So we needed some square footage out of the newer building
Mhm.
to meet that criteria.
Okay. And so that means that fewer items will be available for reimbursement? right?
Correct.
Okay. But the reimbursement rate's the same,
Reimbursement rate stays the same,
right?
but there's going to be additional items on your ineligible list.
But the requirement to touch more points of the building is no longer there
Correct.
with that. So the scope is.
The scope will be
remain
whatever
more
we
intact to
decide.
what
Correct.
Northeast Collaborative had
Right.
worked on in conjunction with you guys.
Okay.
Okay.
And given the timelines, that's probably a good outcome.
That's all I have to update the committee with.
Okay, I'm just making a note real quick. Then number 6, update from the communications subcommittee.
So James and I are putting together a communication that will be sent to the principals and would be put on our town website on the page for our committee to be disseminated. So I think we're discussing whether or not to create some kind of newsletter to be sent out, we can forward to people, and then we can, I think we also need to send it out to the neighbors of the schools.
Yeah, so the concept possibly of the newsletter was originally the whole idea of just going through the principals, or initially with the communication was to try to get to as many parents as possible. And they have the most robust list of parents at every school. But we don't want to, part of the concern is not relying, I guess is the wrong word, but putting that pressure on the principals to keep up with our responsibility of communicating that out. And putting the onus on them to do that is not necessarily fair to them. They're busy doing other things and all that. So the idea was about possibly making a newsletter that people could subscribe to that we can easily update
And then the principals.
Principals can send that
notify
out
people
once.
to-
Yeah, they can send that out once a month or something, or once
I
to
think we
all
should
the
do one
parents.
once a month, yeah.
Yeah, and just say like, hey, here's the
Yeah.
newsletter, you can update. That way we make sure we're giving out the information properly. Those who choose to receive it will have had the opportunity to do it. Principals can update additionally on top of that if they want, but it covers all bases.
And until the construction begins, I
Not
think.
too much.
Yeah, there's not as much going on.
And then how do you determine who on the neighborhood side, neighbors of the schools? Do we have that information?
There's a list of neighbors. That's what they use when they worked with Oxbridge.
Okay.
The neighbors are invited.
Do you think we could put it together into a plan? Because I think there are different things we want to communicate.
Mhm.
So, for example, when we get to, when we start to get into design phase, I think that's when Oxbridge first went out and did a series of kind of tours
Yep.
of the community. So I think there's sort of the newsletter type
Mhm.
information that we want to
Yep.
push out. There are points in time where we might
Yep.
want to go and talk to people
Yep.
and have roundtables.
Yep.
Sure, so the
There's-
newsletter concept, I say newsletter just because it's the most commonly referred to way, I guess. But it can be a monthly thing, but in that same subscription list, if you subscribe to those emails, we can push out whatever updates through there, even if they're
Yes.
sporadically put throughout the month. If we do a
Yes.
more routinely month one, that's there, but if we have an event or tours or whatever, we can push it through that same channel.
I think I was thinking just communications written, but I understand that you're also thinking about all the meetings and, yes, we need to come up with that. Yes,
Yeah, I think
100%.
so, and there
We
might
can
be
do that.
times,
Yes.
for example, that we would choose multiple communication methods,
Yes.
because if we've got
No,
to a
there's
point
some
where we
things,
want
yeah.
the newsletter, we understand that a newsletter would be subscription, but you might want a principal to push something out because you want to
Right,
make sure that.
it would be
Yes.
in my mind at least, it would be in addition to.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be helpful to just be a little structured.
Sure,
in
absolutely.
Identifying.
Absolutely.
Jill, are you thinking that when we get to the, when we're making a determination for the final numbers, right, we would theoretically have selected one of the architect's designs
Yes.
for the most part, right? And at that point, it would be appropriate to engage the neighbors?
Probably a little further in the process, but closer to that,
Once
yeah.
we're definitely down to one and he's
Yeah.
got a
Yeah.
tentative plan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we
okay.
start to talk about what it's gonna look
Mhm.
like, build excitement.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fair
Well,
enough.
yeah, and certainly when you're ready to retain, right, or we've retained, right? I don't know that we,
In the Oxford case, that was weird. They selected an architect, they started working with the architect, but the negotiation, of the contract was drawn out many months.
right.
They didn't actually sign the final contract until months after they were
Boy.
well into the planning
Right.
phase.
So I'll give you my thought, once we're ready to move to number 7, I'll give you my thoughts on that.
Okay, yeah, great.
Anything else from the communications subcommittee?
No, we'll put that plan together.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so then we are on
Thank you.
item 7, which is
Back to,
discussion of the architect RFP questions and selection process. I want to just address that.
Yeah.
While you teed it up. My thinking on the contract, obviously subject to people's input, is the Oxbridge Committee did a lot of the heavy lifting for us on that contract by negotiating that contract and the CM contract.
Right.
And that, my thinking is that when we get down to, let's call it our final 2, or maybe final 3 at the most, at that point, we send them the contract and we ask them for their comments, if they have any comments, and we make it very clear that our preferred approach is that they take that contract essentially as is, or as much as is as they can, and if they have any material issues, tell us now, and we will take that into account in the selection process.
Okay.
And that way, I think that will short circuit a lot of further, the combination of telling them that this is the contract that the Oxbridge architect engineer agreed to, and that you're competing with the other architects, and we're gonna see who has the most significant comments as part of the selection process, should compress that process.
Okay.
Is that,
Yeah, fair
Paul in
enough.
particular, someone who's been down this road, does that sound right to you?
Well, we typically don't bring 3 people to the dance, but you pick which one you
Well,
want.
we can talk about the selection
Right.
process in a second.
What they're going to do is they're going to take our contract language and then they're going to lawyer it through and they're going to strike what they don't want to be held to if they have an issue with something, then we're gonna have to come back and get our legal involved and say, if we hire them, are we accepting these terms, are we not accepting? So that's kind of how that will go. So there'll be a little back and forth, depends on how, again, if it's one of the firms that's done the Oxbridge, they've already seen these languages. The other thing will be the insurance, whatever insurance requirements are in back, it'll be the same back and forth with their COIs. So I think that all makes sense. I think we do it that way. It's just if you get to something that's a big sticking point for somebody on something, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not naive enough to think that anyone's gonna take it
Right.
as is where is, right? People are gonna make comments, and then we'll take those into account.
Right.
On the
We
que-
should do a preliminary read of the contract, before we send it, we go through the contracts, make sure that there's nothing that was boilerplate that, we need to take out or, different. Not gonna.
Or that was very specific to
Right,
Oxbridge, right?
specific
'Cause
to
it was
Oxbridge, or-
There's a contract for a new build as
Right.
versus a alteration expansion. So there's gonna be there probably will be some tweaking to adapt it to what the project's gonna be.
Were you involved in that too, Mike, or was that just Rusty?
No, that was mostly Rusty, yeah.
So it's gonna be ironclad and it's gonna be great, but we still need to make sure it's specific to us and then what the architect's comments are back on it.
You're right, there is that back and forth.
Right, payment terms, all that stuff is gonna be in there, so.
Right, okay. In terms of the architect's questions, Mike alluded to that. He's spoken to Antonozzi, which is the firm that presented the majority of the questions. And you said that they were satisfied that their questions were answered, and?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
He left me a voicemail message that I kept.
So I guess the next, then let's talk about the process for selection, right? We've now got, I guess you said nine submissions.
There's more than 9, there's enough submissions. I think there's 1 or 2 for the town, like Ed Gentile or Kate, there's 1 for me.
No, but there was 9 submissions, there were 9
Nine
architects.
firms.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, there were 9 firms.
9
that
firms
submitted,
submitting.
yes.
Okay.
And is it who we expected? Who is it?
Yeah, who did Oxbridge choose again?
Did Slam submit?
Slam did submit, yes. There were 2 or 3 firms that submitted on this that did not submit on Oxbridge. And then there were a couple that did submit on Oxbridge that did not submit on, so it's,
Okay.
I think there were 11 total at Oxbridge, and there's 9 for this one.
So there's,
And there's probably 5 or 6 of the same people.
okay.
And
Oh, great.
they made a chart for everybody, I have a copy,
Thanks.
of what the firms,
She'll start marking them. Do you want for David?
now they also,
Thank you.
Chris,
Hang on, we need one more.
there's an envelope right on the other side of the
Okay.
table. It has the thumb drives
Okay.
from, they said Karen Dunn told me 1 firm did not submit a thumb drive. It was one of the requirements. Maybe they just forgot to put it in their package, but,
So Perkins Eastman did not submit a thumb drive.
yeah, and I'm sure it was just an oversight on their part.
Okay.
Um,
Can we reach out to them and?
If you want me to, I have no
Yeah,
problem
sure.
calling them and asking for that. Sure.
Yeah.
They're legit, so.
So,
Everybody's in a nice window.
who were the 3 finalists for Oxbridge, Mike?
I believe it was Slam, Perkins, Eastman, and Antonazzi.
Okay, and then Northeast Collaborative Architects are who did the study, and KG&D is who did the cafeteria.
And the original 5-year building condition survey.
That's right.
So, I'm sorry, do that one more time.
So going in order, number 2.
Yeah, no, so this was, Slam is Oxbridge. Who else submitted for Oxbridge?
Perkins Eastman.
Perkins Eastman, okay.
And Antonazzi,
And Antonazzi. They were the finalists for Oxbridge?
yeah.
Okay.
And
And then
then
Northeast Collaborative did the study.
Right, dated last April.
Right,
Yeah,
correct.
And Oxford ended up going with Slam, correct?
Slam.
That's
right.
correct.
Number two, KG&D did the original master plan, and they did the cafeteria expansion.
So KG&D, they did the building condition study in the cafeteria.
They did the building condition study and actually the master plan, those were two different things.
Right.
And then they
And
also did the
in the
cafeteria.
cafeteria, okay.
Okay. So I guess, from a next step standpoint, we want to get this down to, I guess the question to me is, do we want to get this down to 2 or do we want to get this down to 3 to ask to prepare charrettes and comment on the contract?
Oxford did an interview process first?
They did, Oxbridge interviewed 5 or 6 firms, and from that chose the firms to do the charrette. And,
And they chose how many to do charrettes?
yes, and.
No, how many? 3?
3, they had 3. But what they did when they first got all the, there was whatever the subcommittee is that's handling the architects. For Oxbridge, they met, and I met with them because I knew some of the firms that they did. And we ranked
Right.
the firms. And then I'm out of the picture, and it's just the building committee takes the information, picks the 5 or 6 they want to interview, and then picks the 2 or 3 they want to do the charrette. And, those are not televised, obviously.
Right.
And they're not, it's only the committee. There's nobody else invited to sit in on the interviews.
Right, so the subcommittee here is Jill, Paul, Frankie, and Jameson. And then I can attend as people would like me to or needed to.
Are we
So-
behooved by, these are public bids, correct? So.
Proposals, they're not bids.
Yeah, I'm sorry, they're
Yeah.
public proposals.
Yes.
So does that mean, I mean, again, does that mean we have to bring in the low bidder?
No.
We're not beholden to any of that,
Because it's a professional services
Okay.
agreement.
It's the factor you take into consideration.
Well, obviously, I know Perkins and Slam very well. They're, top flight outfits. They should be brought in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to, which is fine, I think what we should
For
probably do
interviews,
is
yeah, we'll-
read these, right,
Right.
read them. I honestly am not sure what we do with the thumb drives. There's one per architect, right, we're gonna get the one for Perkins.
Yeah.
I guess we can
Well, I think when you
upload
get to your
those.
deliberations and you have questions, somebody throw it in their computer.
Yeah.
So if you want to check something, everybody's not thumbing through 200 pages.
Yeah.
Right, but in
You
terms
know.
of who should hang on to those, who should upload those, what should we do with those?
Secretary?
I'm sorry?
I mean, yes, we can,
You could leave them here.
yeah.
I would suggest being somebody for the audit. They're gonna look at that for the audit. They're gonna look at your process.
Okay,
So.
so
bid,
explain that, I'm sorry, the audit done by whom? By
Well,
the
they're
state?
state town, so they should probably go to
Just a
the
little.
town administrator.
Yes. We can upload them. I'll
You know.
work with, I will get the remaining one from Perkins.
Yes, I'm gonna call them
Yep,
tomorrow.
and then, we'll have the First Selectman's office and Kate and Karen, they can upload it, and they can make sure that we get copies of those.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
There's also a state requirement of how many people you can interview. I'll give you that information.
A minimum or a maximum?
Minimum. Oh,
Which is-
maximum.
A maximum.
Which is,
I think it's 3. I have to look. I haven't
the
looked at it.
maximum is 3, interesting.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
But Oxford did 5.
Well, they did, the first interview was, a quick interview,
Right.
Screening.
a screening interview. The actual interview was, I think 4. The actual final interview was 4, and then 3 for the charrette. But they screened originally 6.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
That was
this.
6 out of 11.
It seems to me, and obviously subject to discussion, that it seems to me that as a next step, the subcommittee should come back with a proposed schedule for when, at what point you want to identify how many you want to interview, right? I don't want to, so if you say we want to interview 3, and we'll identify those 3 by no later than X date, and then we can work on scheduling those interviews at times that work for everybody, and then get it down to 2, I'm just again throwing numbers at you guys. I'm gonna defer to you on whether you wanna have 3 charrettes or 2 charrettes. And that you'll make that determination by X date, so that we kinda know what we're working towards.
So obviously we got a lot of stuff to read through. When do we want to come up with that date that you want us to have an answer by? How many people we want to interview? What's that date?
And then what's the timeline?
Well,
Keep in mind
the
all people
charrettes
we
need to
mentioned.
be back by May 9th.
Yeah, we can probably work backwards from wanting the charrettes
The
by May
charrettes-
9th.
Yeah, in the RFP, the charrettes were due on May 9th, and we need them by then to have a couple of days to get the memo ready for this committee to vote on the final appropriation and to get it through the rest of the appropriation process. So you gotta work in between that, however long it takes to produce a charrette, I
Well,
don't
that's the
know.
question we need to put out to the architects.
I don't know, but you guys need to narrow the group, interview.
Because the proposed
Decide
schedule,
who's
yeah, the
doing
proposed
charrettes.
schedule is
Yeah.
charrettes by May 9th. This committee approves the amended appropriation in our meeting on the 12th. We take that to the Board of Finance on the 16th. I'm sorry, the Board of Selectmen on the 16th, the Board of Finance on the 17th, and the RTM Rules Committee and Education Committee on the 23rd. So that gives us basically 3 days to look at whether it's 2 or 3 charrettes, to be able to work the information from the charrettes into our revised appropriation.
Chris, just, sorry, one thing that part of our service is to do a conceptual estimate on something for you. So again, I think it was, the initial idea was that we would do it on one of the ones you select, so it's contextually right, not instead of going off of the Northeast Collaborative documents. So I think we need to hit that June 7th RTM date. That's the drop dead one, because that's the
Right.
one that would allow for the appropriation, so we can put that amount in the application and have that resolution in the grant application for the June 30th deadline. So, and to do the conceptual estimate, I said we only need, 4
Well, what
days.
is that, what is the conceptual estimate, what is that, or how does that tie into what Dave?
Well,
would be
that's where we run into
driving?
the problem, right? If we wait for the charrettes, we get the charrettes on Monday, May the 9th. This committee was gonna vote on the final appropriation number on Thursday, May the 12th.
Right.
And then it would go to the Board of Selectmen on Monday, May the 16th, if I remember the dates correctly, if I can do them in my head, and then the Board of Finance the day after.
Right.
So that doesn't give you 4 days to do an estimate from the time we have a charrette.
Unless we.
Move the meeting until
amend-
Friday.
Or amend the resolution, right? We can still do that up until the RTM. Can we not amend?
What do you mean?
I guess you could only amend down, because the Board of Selectmen,
We could ask the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance to do special meetings instead, as long as we could get them done, and theoretically, the RTM Rules Committee, because those are small enough groups, we could ask them to convene a special meeting to deal with the one issue, right? The schedule I laid out was designed to try to capture the regular meetings, right? But, if this is an important enough thing for the town that I believe everybody would agree to have a special meeting for
We
it.
can also move our May 12th to either the next day or the Monday after, Monday earlier in the day before Board of Selectmen, right?
If we have to, yeah. The other option is when the architectural committee, narrows it down, if the architects would be willing to shoot for the Friday before the 9th.
So I was just gonna say, is try and get the charrettes in sooner.
If
instead
they,
of
yeah, if it,
anything else.
no?
Are you
Paul,
traveling
Paul,
next
you're
week?
shaking your head, that's too short a time for that.
You're not gonna get you're gonna squeeze these people into from 2 weeks to 10 days if that.
Okay, all right.
They're gonna scream
I have-
as
They'll
is.
lose the
That-
weekend when they
that-
probably would be working that weekend.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine, that's fair enough, yeah, yeah. that's-
I'm away, but I'm here through Sunday of this week, and I'm back Saturday night, so, but
Okay.
it's not like I'm,
And Paul, are you away next week?
No, I'd like to be.
I'm with you. I'm gonna be looking at a lot of kids who are bored.
Exactly.
Okay, and then Frankie is the other one?
Frankie, yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess either we can try to select a date by which you guys have identified
Mhm.
the architects to interview. We can select that date now, or you guys can report back.
There's a date in the RFP,
There's a date in the
in
RFP.
the architect's RFP.
Right, there's a date where we're supposed to.
Get back to them in terms of when we're gonna interview.
Yes. Dave has it on his.
April 14th, building committee announces selection of one or more semifinalists.
So that's
It's
next Thursday.
And
that's the
we are
Thursday we're
meeting
not
next
having a
Thursday.
meeting, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we have no meeting this week.
And then it says April 25th is when the building committee announces selection of final 2 or 3 AE consultants who will be paid a fee in return for presentation.
Thank you. I think we had definitely planned to do that final selection the week of the 18th. I think that's what we were talking about. What is it? Can you read the language again, please?
Sure. April 14th, building committee announces selection of one or more AE semifinalists from RFP submissions. Interviews to immediately follow selection. Next item is April 25th. Building committee announces selection of final 2 to 3 AE consultants who will be paid a fee in return for a presentation of preliminary design concepts for the Hinley Homes and Royal Elementary Schools.
Okay.
And then those charrettes are then due on May the 9th.
May 9th presentation by finalists, correct, with a award of agreement, May 23rd.
So it looks like we're meeting next week.
Well,
I'm here if you guys need an additional person for anything.
Yeah, I'm around too.
Yeah,
okay.
let us know.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4.
Well, the subcommittee, I mean, the subcommittee can,
The subcommittee can meet without the broader.
Right, but
Process, right?
we have to announce at the meeting so I guess you took the meeting off the table for the 14th?
well, we took it off the table because it's a school break.
Right, but according to that, are we now handcuffed to make an announcement on the 14th?
Well, I think the architects expect an announcement. The question is, do we need to do that announcement via
A meeting.
a meeting?
We do not.
Okay.
Okay.
And even if we did have to do it via a meeting, could we do it via, we could have that meeting remote,
And make it a Zoom for everybody.
do a Zoom for
Which I
everybody.
could, if I needed to be there, I could make that.
right? So we could
As
accommodate
long
that
as-
way. And the subcommittee can meet by Zoom, or the subcommittee can meet off-site, or however it's most convenient for people.
Because it's only 4 people, so it's not a
Correct.
quorum, so.
Okay, but then we beat, but we
So
know.
we'll target
that-
the 14th is the date we gotta have that decision by, period.
Yeah, the preliminary decision, that
Yep.
we're gonna interview some number the week of the 18th.
How many you're gonna interview, right? How many semifinalists you're gonna select?
Right.
And then
Okay.
having the goal was to have 2 to 3 by the 25th. Okay. So this week, we need to come up with a framework for however we're evaluating them.
How you're gonna go from 9 to
We-
X?
Yeah, okay. Oh, you look so excited.
These parliamentary rules procedures are just giant handcuffs.
They're a little mind-boggling at
Yeah,
first.
I mean,
Mhm.
I can't switch an agenda item, I don't even know how you build a school, to be honest. Like, doing it.
When do we move to regular
We
meetings?
moved to regular meetings in a few weeks. It's just because we submitted them in short notice, that's all.
Something to be really excited about, Paul.
Anything further with regard to the architect RFP questions and selection process?
Pick up mine tomorrow when it's not raining.
When it's not raining?
I'll come by here and get it.
Mm.
Okay?
All right, well, the subcommittee needs to schedule an internal meeting.
Mhm.
Correct.
If you let me know when you want to do that, I'll come if you want to those.
Yes.
Thank
I
you.
think that would probably be helpful.
Yeah.
For the original screen.
Thanks,
All
Mark.
right, you're leaving when?
Sunday night.
Okay, that narrows the boat. You're not coming back till the following Saturday.
Correct.
it's.
So again, you guys can meet by
and
Zoom.
We need
Yeah,
Frankie.
Yeah, I can meet by
You can do a
Zoom.
Zoom.
We can do a Zoom. All right. I'm sure that's what you want to do on your vacation,
Well-
is go through 9 architects.
It's okay. Well, I mean, I plan to take my copies tonight and start getting through them before I leave, so the majority of my work is done while I'm still home.
Right.
And then I'll be prepared for if you guys want to have a special, a meeting of the group, then I'm ready to go.
Do we want
I
to
won't be able to have
suggest,
them electronically until Monday at least. because
That's fine.
they're gone, yeah.
all right, so we're not, we've got physical copies here we can
Yeah.
take with us.
Physical copies you can take,
And
unfortunately, town hall's closed
electronically,
tomorrow, so Monday.
electronically we'll have them Monday.
Well, yes, I'll make sure they get them Monday.
Okay, so then, Jill, do we want to set up a subcommittee, something Tuesday, and see if we can plow through? Can I
You
leave?
good on Tuesday?
Tuesday day? Yeah.
Well, what time, what time?
Yeah, I
is
mean,
it?
anytime, day, evening, night, it's fine
Do
with
you know
me.
what your schedule is?
Sort of. I'm going to Disney World, so.
Oh, boy. Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
Well, I've been
Well,
going
this is
since
a good excuse to not go
I've been
to the
going
park.
since I was a kid, so I usually enjoy going, but it's like, I've heard from people I went recently that it's like
It's different
absolutely
now.
insane right now.
So many people.
Oh, yeah, so.
It's different. I don't know whether you-
Probably be less than, if the kids weren't so looking forward to it, we wouldn't be going.
Yeah.
I'd rather be on a beach somewhere doing something like that.
If you need
Race
to
Just
go
keep
over-
picturing that in your mind, right?
Yeah.
As you're.
Yeah, no, that won't happen.
All right, well, I mean, do we want to talk offline of what works for the four
Yeah.
of
That's
us?
fine,
Yeah.
we can circulate,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, just let me know and I'll,
Yes.
don't
We have to let Mike.
Don't work
know.
around
I
my
think-
schedule, just
I
let me
think
know
we-
when it's
I think we
scheduled
work-
and I'll be there if I can be there.
Well, I think we work around Mike's schedule.
I'm very flexible. So, you know, if you say, I mean, Monday nights are not good for me, but aside from that,
I'm looking at Tuesday,
fine.
because if
Tuesday's
we're not gonna have
fine.
it until electronically, because if we wanna, instead of us all trying to flip through a packet, if we all have it electronically, someone, and we're on a Zoom, someone
Well,
can pull it up. and
because
we
I'm
can
not
look
bringing
at it.
all those down to Florida with me.
Right,
either.
exactly, so,
Okay.
that
All
way
right, plan for
we can
Tuesday.
pull it up and we can all look at it in real time on a Zoom, we can share a screen and we can discuss if there's something that we need to get into. So I don't think we should do it before Monday if we don't have it
Okay.
electronically.
All right, so
so
we'll
if you pick a time Tuesday, I'm good.
follow up with Frankie
Why
as
don't
well.
you, yeah, why don't you guys figure that out with Frankie
Right.
and let me know and I'll make myself available.
Does anybody want to take a stab? I think there is one from Oxridge at the grid to sort of evaluate the architects. You want me to do that?
Say that again?
We need just a preliminary framework, how, something.
Oh, how are we
like
gonna
this.
select it? Yeah, it's, I see they have like.
Cost, I assume, is one of the options.
Cost, yeah.
Oxridge did,
Oxridge had one.
Cost, experience, similar projects in the past 5
Yeah.
years.
understanding, so this is what
Was that the
Oxridge
Oxridge? Yeah, what
did.
is
Yeah,
it?
they did understanding Oxridge project and design approach, proposal presentation like clarity, completeness, personalization, realistic design schedule, organizational team structure, size of members of them, experience with pre-K through 12 school design, partnering experiences, sustainable design, firm size, availability, relationship between building committee and.
Actually,
AE.
question one is,
Lump sum
can
fee.
you make May 9th?
Sure.
Well, can you make May 9th and, which is different from Ox Ridge, is can you coordinate 3 projects together? Do you have the bandwidth to do 3 projects? And you need to go, so.
I gotta go.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you,
Bye,
Mike.
Mike. Thank you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Can you coordinate, do you have the bandwidth to run and coordinate 3 projects at the same time?
Yeah, they're not all that large, that I think. And
So
they'll probably, they
So
may
then
put the
hopefully the
same
answer to
people
that is
on.
gonna be yes by everybody, right?
Jason,
Um,
can you just put that into a spreadsheet for us?
The.
Criteria.
The one that Oxridge used?
Yeah.
Yeah, can we get an electronic copy of that? So it's,
So that we already, yes, I'm sure we can. We know Karen has all the, she's not here tomorrow.
Nope.
no, but they periodic, those guys, I know like Linda checks her emails on Friday, and maybe she can,
Let me see if that's on there.
yeah.
Okay.
Anything from the other subcommittees? Okay. Not meeting next week, so we will come up with an agenda for the meeting after. Obviously, priority 1 is gonna be reporting on the process of the architect selection. Anything else for the good of the order before we
A reminder, the next meeting is going to be in room 119 downstairs. So April 21st will be in room 119.
Will you please put that when you say because
Absolutely.
I will come here.
Absolutely. It was technically supposed to be tonight also,
Right.
but Jill and I walked upstairs and went, oh, but the name tags were here, so they put us in here.
Thank you, sir.
Then, let me just look at my notes and see if there was anything before we.
We also need an outline of process for the construction manager, just making sure we have that tight, I think.
Right, I mean, right now, I just don't recall off the top of my head what the date in the RFQ is for when we're supposed to get the CM submission.
Okay. We'll do that as part of our committee work this week.
With that, do we have a motion to adjourn? Jameson moves, Paul seconds, all in favor, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
And-